My name is Dominic Rogers. I work in the IT department, oversee all the computers and programming and software and websites and things that Cutco does. My grandfather ran a local grocery store. It was called Rogers Grocery Store over on Wayne Street in Olean. He was just one of those local, salt of the earth kind of guys, knew everyone in the neighborhood, came from a large Italian family, ran an Italian grocery store. You know, he would make homemade sausage and brajol and things like that that I would watch, and that was fun. He was a great guy, fun guy. Everyone knew him. He actually was a avid bocce player. He actually played in the World Championship in Rome, New York at one time. So yeah, he was avid sports fan, avid like golf and things like that, but just a hardworking guy. When I was in my 20s, my grandfather was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And back then it was not as much in the forefront it is today. So it was not necessarily known I didn't know what was going on with him at the time. The first story I was told, he traveled to Italy with his brothers in the mid-'80s, and he got lost for a period of time in Italy, which obviously scared his brothers. And that was kind of the early, like, something's going on. And again, they didn't know a lot about it. And then it was a slow progression. He was probably in his early 70s, just forgetful, and then driving was a challenge, and questions repeated, and then it just slowly, unfortunately, went downhill from there. Initially fell a lot on my grandmother. It impacted her mental state more than her physical state, right? Just the frustration of having to deal with my grandfather, who couldn't do what he used to be able to do. And that's where my parents and my aunt and uncle came in. She kind of cried for help. She needed their help. She just couldn't do it without them. So the three of them kind of had a game plan, and my uncle actually ended up living with my grandparents to try to help. Then my aunt had to come, and she was actually a school teacher. So that one summer, I think, before he went into a nursing home, she lived with him. Unfortunately, he needed 24/7 care, and he had to go into a home, which is they didn't want to do that. I mean, that was their absolute last resort. I'm assuming this with anyone who has to deal with it. It comes to a safety issue. The person isn't safe for themselves or the family. It was a relief, at least I saw in my father, that he was safe. He didn't have to worry about him falling or my grandmother getting hurt or trying to pick him up or do things like that. I don't like nursing homes. I wish no one had to go into one, but they provide such a service for families that are going through this type of disease that they're really a godsend. They really are. I think the biggest challenge they had was realizing it was not their fault. This was something happened to my grandfather, and they felt it was their responsibility to take care of him. I would say, with conversations with my parents later on in life, is ask for help. Find the local resources. Find a support group to talk about it, because that's one thing they did well at times, but other times they needed to talk outside of our family about it to somebody, and that's where they kind of struggled a little bit. Again, later in life, as we had conversations. So it's tough. It was tough. I mean, I remember my father having a really hard time understanding and dealing with it, and get help. Yeah, get all the help you can from any local resource you can find.